Hi, everyone. I'm here today to convince you to try a different method of note-taking when you research. I know it sounds like a pain, but I promise you, you'll cut out a whole step of research if you'll just give it a try. If you're like I was, when it's time to research for a paper, you sit down at a computer and you get online, which is where most of the information is that we can find so easily. It makes sense to give online research a try. So um, I'd sit down at a computer and I would start my research, Google searching, which is great. Google is wonderful. It's a great search tool. And so I would go through and I would say, oh, this could be important for my research. And I would highlight text and copy it. And then I'd paste it to a Word document. And then I'd copy and paste the link where I found that information right either above or below the information that I just copied. And that's okay, except that when it's time for me to sit down to write my paper, I have to go back through all of that information again. And I have to figure out how it's going to work together. And then I have to piece it together in order to get a paper. Plus, I have to click that link again and go back to get the source information for that particular source so that I can cite it appropriately in text and so that I can also go back and add it to my bibliography page or works cited if you're talking MLA format. So there's a lot of back and forth when you copy and paste your research like that. So one of the classes I took as my master's program at Henderson was called Research Methods, and it was taught by Dr. Martin Halpern, who is incredible. He retired several years ago. I wish you all could have met him. He was really interesting. Anyway, Dr. Halpern was telling us how to research, and he insisted that it was a great idea to use note cards. And I know I felt my jaw just dropping open because I had done this in 8th grade. And I didn't realize, because I'd been out of school for a long time when I went back for my master's, I didn't realize that students aren't writing term papers or research papers in junior high or middle school anymore. So I asked my daughter, and she didn't write one. She's in her early 20s, so I figure she's probably close to your age. And she had never written a significant research paper in her public school days either. So I realized that no one's teaching this anymore, and it is the easiest way to write a paper, any kind of research paper, whether it's for this class or any other class. If you have to do research, this is what I'd recommend. So I've given you some templates here, and we'll take a look at these. Basically, this research method requires two types of note cards, a source card and then the actual cards with notes on them. Now, I'm a realist, okay? I realize that we're not likely to sit down and write out note cards anymore, like the 3x5 index cards. So I've given you templates here. They're 3x5 templates. And so you can copy these as you need to. And once you see how they work, I mean, it's not a formatting miracle or anything. It's something you could easily set up for yourself. So the idea is to, once you see something that you think might be important to your research that you think you would want to include, you immediately put that information into your own words, okay? So first, let's start here by looking at where it says source one, okay? So this is the card I would use to write down the information about my source, because this card is going to be important to me when I create my reference page or my works cited or bibliography page. It's also going to be very important to me when I cite in text. So I need a source card for every source I've got. If I have 10 sources, then I will have 10 source cards. Now, from each source, I might have 5 note cards or 10 note cards. The total of note cards doesn't matter. but you need one source card for each source you've got. So here I have source one, which is literally the first book I pick up. I'm not alphabetizing anything at this point. I'm not I'm not doing any of that. I'm not trying to put it in any kind of order. It's literally just the first source I looked at, okay? So source one, here's an example that this is an article. I found it here. It's a journal article. Half a minute, predicting teacher evaluations from thin slices of nonverbal behavior and physical attractiveness, from the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, volume 64, page 3. There it is. That's all the information that I would need for my works cited / bibliography / references page. So I've got it on one card. And see the source one up here? The one is very important because every note I take from this particular journal article is going to be labeled with a 1. So I know it came from source 1. So this is a note card. These other cards are note cards. This number 1 indicates that it links back to source 1. And you should always paraphrase as you go. So as I was reading this article, I saw something important that I thought might be relevant to my research. And so I immediately put it into my own words, and then I typed those in. And here it says, teacher evaluations as they currently exist in most institutions of public and higher education are not effective measures of instructor performance. Now that's not my idea. That's the book's idea, but I put it in my own words. And so I have to cite that. I got it from page 2, and I just noted here, page 2. And then I go over a few more pages and I see something else that catches my eye that might be important to my research. So I immediately put it in my own words right here. There is no measure for what a good or an effective teacher is. It varies per school and sometimes even per classroom. I found that on page 10. And then here's another page I found, or page 6 gave me some more information that I liked. So I immediately put it into my own words and I typed those here. So what exactly does that mean? Well, let me give you another example. Let's say that's all the information I got out of source 1. So I have to go to another source. Oops, so I go here and I write source 2. And then I put all of the information from my next source, my bibliography information. Then this is going to be a note card from that source. So I just put a 2 up here and I continue typing the notes, my thoughts of what I'm reading right here. And then I associate a page number with it. So what happens now at the end, once you've done all your research, you've already written your paper. Technically, you should be able to take your note cards, not necessarily your source cards, because you're going to set those aside. But you've got your note cards, and you can arrange them in different ways so that you can put your original thoughts in order, and your paper is pretty much done. At that point, because you know it's in your own words, you can copy and paste from your note cards without worrying about plagiarizing. And this is so much easier than it was when I was in 8th grade doing this for the first time, because we had to write everything in pencil on 3x5 note cards. So definitely type it. It's much easier to type. And it's much easier to save this information. I mean, you can save files all day long, but you can have as many source cards as you need, for one for each source that you use, and then note cards. I mean, you may have 30 or so from one source, probably not for this project, but for future projects that you might have. For this reason, I wanted to introduce you to this kind of research because it is so much easier. Not only does it save that step in going back and forth to reread a full article, it also saves that extra step of sitting down to write it. If you're like me, and sometimes you have a big project and you feel overwhelmed, sometimes it's hard to just go get started. And if you have these note cards, You've already started. It's already there. You just have to maybe add in some transitional phrases to get from one paragraph to the next. And a lot of times it just falls into place. And you don't even have to do that. The more you use this process, the easier it becomes, and the easier it becomes to fall into place when you start adding these things together. So it's literally shuffling. I've done this exercise in class a number of times where I give students my note cards from articles that I've written and say, put this in order so that they make sense. And they go through and they pick a card and it's their opening paragraph, and then they pick another card for second. And it's amazing to see how very similar they are to the final finished product, because I pull those up on the web and say, oh, okay, look, here's what it actually was. Sometimes they're a little different. People will pick a different opening paragraph than I did, and that's fine. But that's the glory of this note-taking system, that you can do that. Another important thing is, if you do plan to study history, or if you're researching for another degree that you're getting, or a job that you have in the future, when you save these cards, you can always go back and you can add them into other projects. I do that a lot because most of my research focuses around the civil rights movement. So I do a lot of research in that regard. So I can pull those cards and I have a lot of work done already. And that's a good feeling. So anyway, feel free to use this note template and make it your own so that you can add as many sources as you want. You can color code those if you like that. That's something that I kind of like to do. That's why these are yellow. So source 2, I'd probably make pink or something. But anyway, you don't have to do that. But this is here for you. And I wanted to at least tell you about this note-taking process. If we were in class, I'd probably actually insist that you use this, and we would check your note cards and that sort of thing. But at this point, for an online class, I want you to be aware of it because I know it can save you time. It saves me time all the time. So I can testify to this. So you should really give it a try too. If you have any questions about this note-taking method, please hit me up, let me know, because I really want to make research not only easier for you, but more enjoyable. If it's less to worry about, you can enjoy it more.